So they said to us that we were very lucky because most kids, it's too late before the parents actually recognize these signs. Hi guys, I'm Mama Bear to Many. I am mom to 14 children. 12 of those children are still here at home, and I am exhausted. Can you tell? My eyes are like, oh. Yep, still got that runny nose going on, and it actually was getting better. And then when we went to the hospital, they had like broken, the heater was broken. Long story, the heater was broken, and they didn't know it was broken. Nobody told them, so they were trying to crank the heat, and it was like blowing out cold air, so it felt like you were in an air conditioner, and it was cold. Okay, so anyhow, I am going to talk to you about recently my daughter was in the pediatric ICU. I'm going to update you and tell you how she's doing. And then I'm going to go over some different things that you might want to know because I never saw this coming. And some things, slight things that you might be able to recognize that might be able to help you detect the same thing in your children so you don't have to get into the situation that we were in and be in the ICU. So, my daughter is 5 years old. She'll be 6 in, when are you going to be 6? November. She's going to be 6 in November. So, do you want to come here and tell these people something? She did want to, and then she started playing a game with her sister. So this is our daughter, and when we went to the doctor, we went to the doctors the other day because you weren't feeling well. And how are you feeling now?
Good.
She's feeling good. Do you know what's changed in your life since you went to the hospital?
The blood.
The blood. So she's had to have. Do you know what you have?
I don't remember.
What does your bracelet say?
I left it.
What does it say?
I have diabetes.
She has diabetes. So she has type 1 diabetes. We knew nothing about this. We have a fair diet. We eat fairly low carb and low sugar diet.
I wear the bracelet.
And so they gave her a bracelet to wear that says that she has type 1 diabetes because it's very serious. So what happens now that you have diabetes? What do we have to do before a meal?
Have a shot.
Yeah, she has to have a shot of insulin before a meal. So we didn't know. You can go get your bracelet if you want. She's doing fairly well now. Her numbers are coming down. It was really scary. So I'll back up a little bit and then I'll tell you like how I even tested and what went on. So let's see. Would have been Monday. So this is Wednesday, so it would have been not 2 days ago, but the Monday before. She started showing signs of possibly like a UTI. If you've had a lot of girls, you want to turn.
I just get a stab, like right here.
She wanted to check her blood sugars as well to make sure she was okay because her sister was. So she's telling you she got that as well.
I got that as well because.
And you were healthy, weren't you?
Yeah.
Okay. So what happened was she wasn't feeling well. I thought she might have had shh. All done. Okay, now you can talk in a little bit, but I have to tell them in case maybe one of their children gets sick, okay? Okay. So last Monday she started off it seemed like a UTI, like she had to go to the bathroom quite a bit. So I was like, "Oh, I better get some fluids in her, make sure she's getting plenty of fluids." Her appetite was okay. It wasn't like super hungry, but it was okay. She was still eating normal foods and everything. No tummy pain. I asked like all those things like every day because she just was kind of like bleh. But if you're, if you have a UTI and you're fighting like that type of infection, that would be the same. So for us, we've had lots of daughters. We go the more natural route, and our doctor is completely fine because we have had positive UTI tests and we have treated that with Demonuse and lots of fluids very successfully. We went the route with one of our daughters to get antibiotics, and she ended up with doing 4 different antibiotics and couldn't hack it. So I looked natural things up and started using Demonuse, and within 5 days she was clear. Um, and that does come in a powder form, not just a pill form. Anyhow, I thought that that's what we were starting. She's 5 years old. It's quite common around that age, because they're starting to learn like to do the bathroom stuff by themselves and all that type of stuff. So I thought that's what it was, and so I was treating as such, giving her more fluids. So basically, she was going to the bathroom more often, and she was drinking more fluids. And that was what happened. And her appetite was kind of funky. It wasn't like bad. She was still eating like at every meal. Um, so that is what happened until Friday. She was just kind of like, well, she had a couple naps throughout the week, which is kind of uncommon for her. But like if she went for like a hike or something like that, or if she was sick with just like a common cold, she would take a nap. She's still young enough that she would take a nap. So it was, unusual for everyday behavior, but not unusual if she wasn't feeling well. So she had been taking naps. And then on Friday, she took a long nap, probably about 2.5, 3 hours. And I don't know. As a mom, something just seemed a little different. And I went to pick her up and put her on my lap on the swing outside. And actually, I went to put her on my lap inside the house, and I was like, she felt a little bit lighter. So I took her weight, and her weight was about 5 pounds less than what she was in July. So I don't know like how that was months ago, right? Like I don't know if they said she probably was slowly losing weight and you just didn't notice it. So I texted my husband and I said, I'm really concerned. Like, so then I'm thinking in my head and I was looking up different things like how to help a child gain weight and like those types of things, like naturally. I didn't want to give her like all this crazy stuff. So I was researching those types of things, and then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like, my brain was just like done at that moment. I texted my husband and said, we really need to talk about this. Like, and he said, yeah, we can do that when I get home tonight. So I said, okay. So I went to sit her. She was kind of following me, and we have an outside swing, and I went to sit with her on the outside swing. And like all of a sudden in my head, I felt like I should check her blood sugars. And you may have a cheese stick in the fridge. Okay. Um, so lot sorry, when I'm tired my brain just like stops if I get interrupted. Okay. So she was on my lap and I was thinking that I should test her blood sugar, and I was like, well, that's really weird. Why would I test her blood sugar? I don't want to have to poke her if I don't need to. Like, why would I test her blood sugar? But that thought wouldn't go away, and I really feel that that was of the Lord. Like the Lord was telling me to test her blood sugar. So I was like, oh, okay. So I got up, I went in the house, and the weird thing is I have not got this video out, but I took the footage of like my medical supplies. And in order to do that, I had just like cleaned up the whole area because things had gotten a little wonky. And I cleaned up the whole area and seen that I still had a blood sugar thing from when I was pregnant. I just took my blood sugars a couple times because I was borderline really low blood sugar. So I just wanted to make sure that like when it got low and I was like compensating for that it was getting higher. So I had got one just in case so I could see what my numbers were. And so I had forgot about that until I cleaned up. So this is the way the Lord's working it all out. So I went upstairs, I grabbed it, and I tested her blood sugar. I washed her hands and wiped, on her thumb and tested her blood sugar, and it came up 530. And I'm like, Googling, because Google's your best friend, right? Googling it, and I'm like, no way, it can't be 530. So like then I'm like, oh, trying to be like the mom that like just puts on the face, right? And it's like, come on, let's go wash our hands. There must have been sugar on our hands, right? Or sugar on my hands. So we're scrubbing our hands together, and Then I wiped it again. I waited about 15 minutes. And so then I tested again, and the sugars were still the same. So, all right, I had to come outside. So let's see, where was I? I had it perfect that I knew what I was going to say, but I forgot what I was going to say. I'm doing well. So I'm trying to adjust this because I'm like crooked. So she had really high blood sugar, and I was like, okay, this is not right. But then at the same time, I promised myself, after my son's death, a lot of the stuff that went on with my son's death was lack of medical care in our local hospital. And it wasn't the first time that we had lack of medical care in our current hospital. I was hemorrhaging, like severely hemorrhaging, and needed immediate surgery, and they were trying to send me home. So our local hospital is not exactly the place that I want to bring my precious children. So I called my friend Sarah, because at this point I'm like freaking out. And normally I don't freak out. Normally I'm very I've dealt with tons of medical situations, and I'm normally very calm, but I don't know, my anxiety or something just totally came over me like a whirlwind. And I'm so thankful that I had her. You know her, it's Hurting Little Cows, Sarah. And so I called her and just explained what was going on. And she said, you need to get her to the hospital immediately. And I would go to the closest hospital. And I was thinking in my head, like, no, I don't want to go to the closest hospital. Mind you, my closest hospital is 30 minutes. And my faraway hospital that I really wanted to go to is 2 hours away. And she said even something on the lines of, I remember thinking like, I don't want to like misquote, but she said something along the lines like, even if you just get her to this hospital and get her started to get treated, then if you need to, you can, go to the other hospital. But I was also worried that before my son's death, they held him at this hospital and were unable to find him a bed. So he actually sat for 3 days in the hospital, and they did not find him a bed. I fought very hard to get him a bed in the city hospital. I fought. They didn't. They would have just let him sit there for the next week and die. And I wanted somebody to fight for his life as much as I wanted to fight for his life. And so I didn't really want to be there. But at the same time, I know that Sarah is very wise, and she would choose her. She knows my feelings. She knows my heart, and she would choose something very wisely for me to do. So I said, okay. I sucked it up. I told people to get me a bag together and that type of stuff. And I was like, okay, we need to go to the hospital and check this. And so picked her up, put her in the car, and we got there, and there was somebody in the triage area. And I just stood there, and I had pulled myself together to drive, all that type of stuff. Another concern is that my husband was at work, and he works all over like the region. And so he was about an hour away from like the first hospital, the closest hospital, and then if he were to like come, he would have had to come back to the house first, and then we would have had to go to Bangor if I wanted him to come with me. And emotionally, I felt like I really wanted him there. So, I mean, I could have done it, and it would have been like her first. I'm not saying that I wouldn't get her proper care because I didn't have my husband with me, but at some point, even if I got there, I wanted him to like be coming after I got there. So the decision was made that I would go to a local hospital. So I went there, I'm standing there, and everyone knows everyone there. My husband worked there for 10 years, the small hospital that is. And I stood there and I'm waiting patiently. Then all of a sudden it just totally hits me, and I start bawling my eyes out. Like I'm holding my daughter's hand, and I'm trying not to, I'm trying not to like just whatever. And I was just so afraid that they weren't going to take proper care of her. And worried what was going on. Like I didn't know. I kind of knew. Like I was thinking, okay, well, these high numbers, like that's not good. Something must be going on with her blood sugar. Something must be causing something to go on with her blood sugar. And then like I'm thinking in my head, like how can something be going on with her blood sugar? Like she's only eating like real food, right? Like we eat real food. We're not eating like I know plenty of people that give their kids junk all day long. I don't. I feed my kids real food. If we have junk, it's like homemade cookies. And so I'm like a little confused by all this. And so we get in there, and the doctor was like, he comes in and he is saying, yeah, so they tested her numbers, they were still over 500, and he assumed that I knew that she was diabetic, and he asked like what I had already done, and I'm like, nothing. He's like, well, how did you know to test her blood sugar? And I said, honestly, I said, I feel like the Lord told me. Like, it wasn't that I heard like some male voice behind me like, test her blood sugar right now. Like, that's not what I think people mean when they feel like God did that. It's that it's put on their heart so strongly that it's hard to push away. And you know that like somebody is like watching out for your child, because the Lord loves your child more than you do, no matter how like unfathomable that sounds. It's true, and you just have to trust in that. So the doctor that came in was really good. He had actually only been working at that hospital for 2 days, and he went to say that we were going to transfer her to the city hospital, and I was like, if you cannot get her transferred and it's going to be quicker, I will pick her up and take her right now, and it will take 2 hours and we will be there. Like, I want what's best for her. And then he's like, well, you're going to wait. We need to transfer her. And I was like, you don't understand. She is not going to wait here for 3 and 4 days. And he said, no, we're going to start treating her right now, and I'm going to get her a bed immediately in the closest hospital possible. I said, if it's out of state, like, I'm driving there tonight, like, or someone's driving there tonight, like, I don't care. And he's like, okay. Disease. it's not like a diet related. Yes, can you, and we're going to look into like how we can use less insulin because of diet, but it's not related directly to your diet, where type 2 is almost always directly correlated with your diet. Like, it can be more easily corrected through diet. So type 1 is an autoimmune disease, type 2 is not an autoimmune disease. So which I knew none of this. I was very confused because I was thinking that, like, I don't understand why she has diabetes if we eat so well. And so he was awesome. He explained everything with us, or with me. I went, my husband came home with me, which was really wonderful. And so then we were trying to get a second IV. They needed to get an IV to take her blood and then a separate IV to have her constant drips into. And so she needed another IV. And they were having a really hard time getting an IV in. They started at about 12:45 trying to get an IV, and we finally got finished up at 4:45. They used ultrasound. There was 3 different, like, the best techs that were on, 3 different techs trying to get a line in. And then finally the doctor, he ended up doing like this trick where he put a needle into her skin, pulled that needle out, moved her skin over slightly so it was over a vein, and then inserted like that. That line right there was good enough to get the fluids in, but not good enough to draw off of. So the other one that they had put in the other hospital, they drew off of. By this time, she's like really dehydrated. That had a big play. She also has thicker skin. So when they were like putting the needle in, it was actually like making the skin go down. Like, so by the time they got in, it wasn't going in correctly. So it was none of their fault. They had the ultrasound machine, like literally the 3 people were all in there together, working together. And then it was the 3 nurses and the doctor. And they did that all together. And then they got an IV in her. So by 5, we were semi-settled. She was starting to get insulin and that type of stuff. So then I took a cat nap. She was out. She was really like out of it, like for the first day or so. She was just really tired. And they were making sure that her brain function was okay, because what happens is she had ketoacidosis is what she was admitted to the hospital for. So we were treating ketoacidosis, and we still are treating ketoacidosis until there's acid in her blood, and until that's like in a normal range, then she has ketoacidosis. But they were trying to get that down because it was very high. And what the doctor said was, if most of the time, because all of these symptoms that they could potentially have are so small and could be related to anything, most of the time children, especially that young, that come in almost like a coma state. And when that happens, like their other organs, like their kidneys, start failing. And if they, like, when they get them back, if and when they get them back, that some of their mental state is lost, because it does affect the brain. So your body goes into ketoacidosis in order to protect the brain and organs, but the brain is like the last to be affected. So he was really surprised when I told him like how little symptoms that she had, and why I decided to test for blood sugars, because on most people's radars would not be test for blood sugars. So I just want to, we're home now, we're trying to figure out this whole diabetes thing, and what she can eat. Like, you have to literally like count all carbs. So she gets just a plain insulin for her day to day, and then every meal she has to test. We have to see what her numbers are. We have to give her insulin for that correction, and then we need to give her insulin for what she's going to be eating, and then figuring out that her eating needs to have a certain amount of carbs and like a certain amount under of sugar. So her carbs would be like from this number to this number. I think it's she has to have, we actually had a low carb diet in some meals. I actually have to think like, okay, where can I add a carb here? And it's not a bad thing, but like she has to be able to get a dose of insulin. And even if it's like 0.5 or whatever, she has to be able to get a dose of insulin. So trying to figure out those numbers, it's really, honestly, it's kind of overwhelming and confusing because it's like every meal. And then as soon as you get done with that meal, it's like, oh, I have to think about the next meal. And a lot of things that I already had made don't have like carbs all counted out. So it's kind of confusing, like, oh, I need to figure out from scratch what everything is going to be. So I want to just tell you moms signs that you can look for to test. And I do think if you're a prepper or something that you should probably keep a blood sugar tester, glucose monitor. Is that the name of it? A glucose monitor? I think so. I call it a blood sugar tester. Anyway, I'll probably get proficient in all these words. So to keep one at your house. But the signs and symptoms of this are tired. Yeah, urinating a lot. And a lot of times, which he said happens a lot, is one of the first signs is that a child might wet the bed. And my daughter, when we went camping, she wet the sleeping bag 3 times. But I was thinking, like, that's really emotional for a 5-year-old maybe to be like going through this. And then when we got back, she's probably had like 2 accidents in bed. But she also has been very emotional, like since Bobby's death. And there's been other things like just going on where maybe I thought that she was like emotionally tender in that area. So those are signs, which you don't really take wetting the bed as a sign of diabetes, or I didn't. So wetting the bed, frequent urination, excessive wanting to drink. She did not have really excessive wanting to drink. She wanted to drink, but we're like a big family, and she had her water bottle, and she just was drinking her water bottle throughout the day. I wouldn't say like, she never came to me and was like, I'm so thirsty, or like, I don't remember like having to do whatever. I actually encouraged her to drink more because I thought it was a UTI. So the excessive drinking wouldn't really be it. But honestly, like, these things happen. He said it was probably happening for months, and it happened so subtle and so slowly that it's hard to recognize. Tired is another one. So there's such small things. But if you have those things, and she did not, but if you have those things along with like a stomach ache or stomach pain, that's like key. He said most of the time, if it's caught before coma, that the child will be complaining of stomach pain. I was asking my daughter every day because I thought maybe she was getting something else with it. Like, oh, maybe you're getting a cold. I kept feeling if she had a fever because she was just tired, and she looked like, in her face, she looked like dark circles here, which happens when she's sick. So I was just asking, like, how do you feel? Do you have a headache? Is your tummy hurt? And she said no, like every time. So just really subtle signs, but thank you for listening to this. It's going to be an interesting ride over the next little bit. I'm not quite sure where my videos are going to go or not go. We always have to do shopping, so our shopping will probably change a little bit. And I'll explain those like as we go. I wanted everyone just to kind of know maybe some of the signs that you could look for, or don't put it like on the back burner if a child has signs for like an extended period. She really didn't, but he said a lot of times the kids might, but a lot of times they come in and already are in like a coma-like state because it's such subtle things. Another thing is type 1 diabetes does not have to run in your family. a cold or something like that can happen and trigger type 1 diabetes. They said that over the past couple years with the new virus, they have seen more cases than they have seen before, almost doubled. So take that as you may, but you should know as a parent like what to look for, because I was completely ignorant to this. It has nothing to do with how healthy your diet is. It just makes some sort of virus or something shuts down your pancreas from producing insulin. And so it's a whole new journey, but I'm so thankful that the Lord just showed me at that time to check her blood sugars so that she's, she wasn't smiling at all in the hospital. She was very, it was hard to see her that way, right? Like just blah. And then she got home, and to see her with her siblings and just like the smile on her face, like I could see like she missed her siblings so much. And we did video chat and stuff, but she just missed them so much. So coming up, I'm not quite sure. I was going to make the month of October like an organization type month, because we did, or in September was like the prepper type thing. I do have video footage of like my medical supplies that I'm still going to share with you guys. I will probably share those. My daughter said she'd help me like clip some things together, so if she can do that, I'm going to see if she can try to do that for Saturday. Today's video that came out was actually from right before I went in the hospital with her, and I had already like uploaded it and stuff that day and put it on to like you can put it so it's like ahead for Wednesday, because I being a mom of craziness, I try to do like a video ahead. So like the video that I do would be like I would put it for like the next Wednesday or Saturday, because I'm trying to make Wednesdays and Saturday like a constant, so you guys know when and where you'll be able to hang out with us and stuff. So I just want to thank you guys so much for your prayers. My daughter, she's like, I know that I'm better, and people were praying for me, and now I can pray for other people. And it was just, I don't know, it's really sweet, but it's hard. Like, we could use your continued prayers. It's hard like emotionally when your daughter's sitting there and she's just this little peanut of a thing, and she's like, Daddy, can you hold me while Mom jabs me or stabs me or whatever? And it's just like, oh my goodness, that's so it's just your heart, right? Like it rips out your heart. Or her telling her siblings, like, now she understands, so it's a little bit easier. She didn't understand before, but knowing that I have to get a shot before I eat every time. And then she knows, like, I can't, like, we're not doing snacks as of yet. They did tell her that she could have like a meat or like a cheese stick in between, and just trying to figure that all out. Oh, and I didn't even update you. The other night, oh my goodness, I was home, first night home, Monday night, and her sugars were so high at 2 o'clock in the morning, because we have to do this in the middle of the night too. So 2 o'clock in the morning, checking her sugars, and her sugar, the monitor says high. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? So I call the office, which they are on 24 hours, or they have someone on call 24 hours. And it meant that they said mark it as 600, because when it's high, it's over 600. So from that to this morning, it was in the 100s, and it was so exciting. I mean, late 100s, but it's been like 300s like since then. And to see that was just like, oh, that's so exciting. So we appreciate your prayers, and thank you for listening and being part of our family, because we've really felt you guys, just like, it was such a blessing to hear you guys like praying for us when I made that little clip. Like it really just uplifted me. Oh, I did want to say the comment section, I actually put it so I have to look at comments first, because the first day in the hospital, one of my friends texted me, and somebody was writing some really evil things before they even knew I was in the hospital, about just like one of the videos that I had. They were writing some bad things, and so I just decided for now that I was just going to put those comments there. I am seeing your comments. There's a little flip up, because like once I publish them, I can't figure out how to comment on them. So I'm going to figure that out though, and I really appreciate it. So if I don't respond to your comments, please just give me a little bit of grace. Thanks so much. You have a blessed day.